Microphone check. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. Just a reminder to our public, if you'd like to address the board this evening through open forum, there are yellow forms outside in the round table that you need to fill out, and go ahead and submit them to Ms. Delgado if you'd like to address the board. With that, I'd like to call now to order this Gadsden Independent School District regular school board meeting for Thursday, February 9th, 2023 at 5:04 p.m. Ms. Delgado, can you please take roll call?
Mr. Cano?
Present.
Mr. Castillo? Ms. Flores?
Present.
Ms. Murillo?
Present.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Present.
Madam President, we have established quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Delgado. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the salute to the New Mexico flag. Secretary Rodriguez, can you please read our mission statement?
The Gadsden Independent School District will provide diverse educational opportunities that empower students to be successful in an ever-changing world. El Distrito Escolar Independiente de Gadsden brindará diversas oportunidades educativas que capacitarán a los estudiantes para tener éxito en el mundo cambiante.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 3 on our agenda, Superintendent Dempsey's district updates and recognitions. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, welcome. We've got quite a bit of information for you this evening, and so we'll get started with our legislative update. Mr. Snowdy, if you'll go to that next slide. So just, and I have these in bullets, and I can talk in detail about them, but I'll just give you a little bit of a general information. There is a lot of conversation in our legislature about an increase in minimum hours for students to 1140, so 1,140 hours. Gadsden ISD currently, secondary schools have 1149. So we already cover the new requirement. Our elementaries are 1,064. So we could possibly have to increase it. And the real question in this legislation, there's two bills out there that are moving through the process. One bill allows for up to 60 hours of professional development to be included in the 1140. One does not allow 60 hours. On Friday, February 3rd, a group of superintendents did attend the House Judiciary Committee and testified in favor of the bill that includes the 60 hours of professional development for teachers. And so both those bills will have a lot of energy, and it looks likely that they'll move through the process. At some point, they could be combined, and at that point, it's going to be very important to be watching the language, whether that 60 hours is included or becomes additional. Okay, so that's something to keep our eye on. A lot of conversation in the legislature about the employee medical benefits. We called this the 80-20 bill. There's still about 7 or 8 scenarios out there. The cost of this has definitely jumped. They initially started with a package of about $70 million. They're now up to about 110. And I think that's probably a lot closer to what it's actually going to cost. And it's something that as a district we need to keep a very close eye on, because if they don't include enough money in it, then it becomes basically an unfunded mandate. It is a benefit to our employees, so I definitely support it, because they'll take more money home in their pocket if these pass. But we'll have to see how this all shakes out, and there's a little bit of controversy around it, but we'll see how it goes. This bill changes to graduation requirements. It is just sailing through. I think it's already passed 2 committees and moving very quickly. It reduces the overall amount of credits, and we'll see how that plays out. Now, keep in mind, currently in the language, it wouldn't be implemented till the incoming freshman class. And so you get a little transition period when they get started. So you have to, we'll keep an eye on that and what it looks like. Definitely there's a bill talking about salary increases for instructional assistants. I think that particular bill has a minimum of $25,000 for instructional assistants. Salary increases for teachers, the numbers seem to somewhere, depending on who you talk to, float around 3%, 4%, or 5%. This next bill, increase in responsibility factor. I'll spend a few minutes trying to explain that. In the tiered 3 licensure system, they use a mechanism, a formula, if you will, to determine those salaries. And they expand the formula out to administrators, and they call those responsibility factors. Right now, it's a particular number for elementary, middle school and high school, and assistant principals. They're looking at increasing the responsibility factor. If you think about it, last year when the large salary increases for teachers occurred, they got quite a bit closer to elementary principals. And elementary principals got a raise, but not, they're a lot closer now. There's a lot of conversation around they need to up that responsibility factor. That's going to create a domino effect for everybody from elementary principals, APs, secondary principals, secondary assistant principals, directors, coordinators, all that's going to create a domino effect. So we have to watch what dollars they attach to this to make sure, again, it doesn't become an unfunded mandate. Reduce the district's match for construction projects. This is really important to us as we start moving through our middle schools, which are significant projects for us. We have a percent that's a match, and that's based on our tax bases, right? The proposal is to reduce the district match by a third for traditional projects, and any pre-K projects, reduce it by a half. And so that's significant for us, and it would be retroactive. So I think we all are aware, we're already in planning phases for Gadsden Middle. It would be retroactive for that project. So that's exciting and could be a really nice surprise that we didn't anticipate. Next one has to do with offsets, and we've had a lot of conversation around offsets. It's a real struggle for us, right? Is an offset creates a deduction from what you're eligible for with our construction projects. However, they're very nice opportunities for districts to get from their legislators. And so I've been very resistant to accepting those because right now we have just about a zero offset. However, there's conversation of either eliminating them or temporarily eliminating them. So I don't know what that language all is going to shake out. Very important thing to watch for, and it'd be, I think, exciting, and I think it'd really be appreciated by our legislators to be able to support specific projects and not hurt us on one side, right? Next one is retiree health care contributions. We all, as public school employees, pay into what's called the New Mexico Retiree Health Care. That allows us to be eligible for medical benefits, I think, at the age of 57. Those benefits are going to cost more for each of us, and there's a bill going through that would increase that contribution for the district and for the employee. It's a very nice benefit. Not, if you talk to individuals in other states, not everybody has that. And so it's a really nice benefit. I think it's very important for many of us that, you know, for over 2 decades now, many of us have paid into this. And so there's a little, the controversy is that about 3 years ago, this same bill made it to the governor's desk and she wouldn't sign it. And I'm not totally sure that we understand why, so I'm hoping we get there again and get to the finish line. It's a real important benefit for our employees. And then the other big one is a proposed increase in minimum wage, which would impact all of our hourly employees, and depending on what that does. Now, the thing to watch for on that minimum wage, and you're going to hear about this probably from hourly employees, is when they increase the minimum wage, it's the front side of the salary schedule it increases. It does not necessarily increase on all the way through. So like, let's just say they increase it by $1. It means it increases the beginning by $1. It doesn't flow through the entire salary schedule by $1. So a lot of times people expect that, and that typically is not going to happen. So it's a little frustration for those seasoned employees who feel like, well, I got a 20-cent raise, and somebody else who just started gets $1. So those are things to just kind of keep our eye on and watch for, but I think ultimately a benefit to our employees. Okay, that kind of sums up maybe the legislative update that I have at this point. The next item is our POPS program update, and I think Mr. Ortega is going to be able to help us out here.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey. I'm just here to provide you a snapshot of the POPS program up to this point. And of course, we're going, and I will provide some information as to what we're going to be doing as this program continues to unfold for the second semester of the school year. As you can see, the POPS program, since the beginning of inception in August of 2022, we have received 129 applicants, or in this case, parents who submitted an interest and or submitted an application for possible participation into this program. Of these, 34 had been approved and cleared of their background checks. Okay, and so once those parents have cleared their background checks, then our department, we went ahead and reached out to them to schedule the orientation and training for the POPS program. Okay, as of today's date, there's only been 23 of the 34 parents that have completed the POPS program. Okay, and so to me, it just we reached out to the remaining 11 that have cleared it, but just have not reached out to us to schedule a training session with us. And of course, we've been very flexible on trying to meet their time and their schedule of being available to provide this training to them. And so again, we continue to wait on parents who are willing to come in and take the training. So our next tentative scheduled training is set for Tuesday, which is the 14th of February. Okay? And again, the next page that you will see here is just the following breakdown of parents who have completed their background checks and the orientation and the training as compared to those who have had the background check cleared but have not completed the orientational training. And I also listed the campuses of those who actually participated or submitted an interest in participating in the POX program. As I can see, the majority of them are at the elementary school level. And unfortunately, not all campuses are represented here. But that not necessarily means that of the 129 that submitted didn't show an interest in participating in an elementary school that's not clearly listed here. It's just for whatever reason, of those 129, 34 completed it. Of the remaining, those on there, there's an why they didn't. So, but again, we are reaching out to those who have completed so that they do hopefully come out and participate in the program. And of course, this is what we're going to be doing in order to jumpstart the POPS program, is to, for the spring semester, is, of course, we're going to be advertising and recruiting potential volunteers through the use of our district media productions with the help of Mr. Carmona. And of course, we'll be giving out a presentation during the coffee with the superintendent, or the Monday morning messaging, or even through Remind. So we really need to go back to square one and really advertise and put the word out for any potential volunteers that want to participate in this program. So that's what we're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks. I hope that we'll get quite a few interests into the program that will participate, and of course put out more volunteers into the campuses. And hopefully those campuses that were not listed on the breakdown, hopefully there would be a much better well-balanced of parents that will volunteer the other campuses that are not listed. So, I stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega.
Thank you.
All right, Madam President, board members, our next item is just an update on the consolidation of Sunland Park Elementary. We're all aware that that was passed at our last board meeting. Our agreement was we wanted to roll this out in phases. First, we wanted to offer an opportunity for families to participate in the dual language program. Dr. Teresona and her team met on Monday, January 23rd, and invited parents and got an opportunity to share with them the dual language opportunities for them. And then next week, we have scheduled for our students with an IEP on Tuesday, February 14th, to try to help them with the transition. We also are looking at transition dates for a specific unit, SEC, planned for March, April, and May. As soon as we get these parent meetings scheduled, we'll really start to put together that transition plan. But these are the groups that probably showed some of the most concerns about the consolidation. So we want to make sure we nail their needs and take care of them and eliminate any concerns they might have. Okay. All right. Next item I have for you is just a little bit of a heads up. According to GISD policy, BDA, every March there is to be a board organizational meeting. The officers of the board shall consist of a president, vice president, secretary, all of whom shall hold office for 1 year. The board shall sit at the first regular meeting in March, administer the oath of office. We don't have any new members who would need that. And elect from its membership a president, vice president, and secretary. March 9th, 2023 is our next regular board meeting. So I just wanted to put that on your radar and help you be prepared for it. Let me know if you have any questions about it, okay? Next item is, I believe Ms. Flores is going to help us with some updates on professional development that we just participated in at the High Reliability School Summit in San Antonio, Texas, and the New Mexico School Boards Association's Annual Board Institute.
So I'd like to, first of all, thank Superintendent Dempsey for, and Rosie too, because she helped a lot, I believe, in making the arrangements with her team to fly us out there, to find us lodging, and then two of her ladies worked with the chefs at the hotel to feed our employees. And so I'd like to thank you, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to travel with you all. It was well worth the traveling. I don't like to fly, so, but I did good. So anyways, so I just wanted to take the time to, there was so much information that was given, but I just wanted to highlight, what I learned. So yes, we had originally, I'm not sure, I don't recall when we had approved as a board to move towards a standards-based grading, to become a standards-based grading district. And so attending the summit helped me realize all the hard work that Mr. Dempsey, his leadership team, the principals have done in working with the associates of Marzano. And so it's, what I learned was that it's a framework, and we all got this little journal, and it's very important that, I have my notes here, and I always joke around with Claudia that she feels tons of these things, but it's a good idea that, you take notes to reflect, and that's what they made us do at the conference. And the biggest thing that I learned is this little cart, which Ms. Hernandez said she was going to purchase for us, for the district. And so this really is a summary of the framework. And so I just wanted to highlight the 5 levels. And so why are these important? Because through the high reliability framework, our path to continuous school improvement here, that's the beginning of our continuous school improvement here at GISD, which we've begun. And so I just wanted to highlight the levels, and those of you who are already doing this, you know them already probably by heart. And so the one that impacted me the most was level 1, which is safe, supportive, and collaborative cultures. And so that is very important. With any type of organization, is that you have to feel that you are in a safe environment, that you can collaborate to move the organization forward. And then the level 2 was effective teaching in every classroom. Level 3 was guaranteed and viable curriculum. Level 4, standards reference reporting. And level 5 is competency-based education. If you Google this, you'll find them. And then there's indicators. So this is like your little cheat sheet that I take it to. So when I'm thinking as an administrator, you're observing or you're in PLCs, you can refer to these indicators. So that to me was the biggest learning. And Mr. Cano and I sat in, there was a session where we learned a little bit more. We didn't become masters, at this. So, but we're learning. You probably know more than us at this point, but I really appreciate it. There was a session where we learned about performance scales, and so that was awesome. And just to summarize, as I realize as a classroom teacher, as a teacher, is that we need to stop also just presenting material, trying to cover, because if there's not learning, then what's the point? We're just presenting. And I include myself because I've been guilty of that. And so it was awesome. We got to hear a whole lot of keynote speakers, including Dr. Maria Costa, who's one of the associates that comes out here. And so, and I'm proud to say that I think we were probably the only board in attendance. There are other colleagues that have joined this. Farmington is actually ahead of us, but it's great to know that there's other districts in New Mexico doing this framework. So thank you so much for the opportunity, sir. And then we also attended last week the New Mexico School Board Association Board Summit in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So we did get the opportunity to visit our state representatives. We got to meet, actually not meet, but visit with them, Representative Doreen Gallegos, Representative Ray Lara, Representative Willie Madrid. We also met with Senator Joseph Cervantes, and I wanted to take the time to thank Board Member Murillo through her networking. She was able to work with, I believe it was Senator Cervantes, to get us to meet the governor. So we got to meet Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, and we were able to also take the ROTC kiddos from Gadsden High School and Santa Teresa High School. And the Santa Teresa High School ROTC their color guard presented at at the second day of our NMSBA conference. And then our Gadsden High School kiddos presented in the house. So and I also, again, thank you, Superintendent Dempsey, for being willing to provide the resources for our kiddos to travel for meals, lodging, et cetera. So, and just one highlight that one of the things that I learned was we attended a handful of sessions, and one that I attended with my colleague, Mrs. Rodriguez, was just the importance of how we, for student discipline. And so just one of my notes was like, we have to equitably apply our school district discipline policies and procedures. And so lots of notes, but it was a wonderful opportunity to go to San Antonio and as always, attending those conferences, and know that as elected officials, as board members, we are required 5 hours of professional development. However, I'm proud to say that my colleagues and I do exceed those. That's why my two colleagues here, when they wear the little lanyard, they're full of pins, because we're recognized, for the amount of hours that we devote in learning professional development. And I'd also like to highlight, and I'm so proud of our district, because Mr. Wagamuth and Ms. Hernandez and Mr. Dempsey presented in one of the sessions to veteran board members. And so it was, they highlighted all our work that we've done together in working with our strategic plan. And it was awesome to see fellow board members asking questions, asking how our district does certain things. They were even trying to steal these two, but now we're not gonna let them, right? So thank you for all you do. And if any of you would like to add to any of this, what you learned, you're more than welcome. If not, that's okay. So I open the floor to any of you if you'd like to share. Secretary Rodriguez, go ahead.
I do, very briefly, everything that Ms. Flores was saying. I think that the learning of the different indicators, I think that really helps us as a board. The reason for us to go is to understand what is happening, right, and how everyone is working within the campuses. So we're here to support you, and I think that having that understanding of how it is really going to help us, again, to be there for whatever support you all might need, and knowing that we can work together. I'm like her, I think level one, I feel if we don't have level one, we're not gonna continue, we really need to take care of that level one in order to move on to level two. So I look forward to making changes, not us, but within the campuses, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of changes, and being able to support, because that's mainly what it is, right? I really like that part where it says supportive. So that's something that I really enjoyed, and thank you. I feel very honored that I was able to attend that and have gained some knowledge, because not having the education background, I think that many times we think we understand until we see more of it, we grasp more information. And then for the Institute, the New Mexico School Board Association Institute, yes, it was an honor to be able to see our kids. I am so proud of them. I think it was an opportunity to see how our government works. It was everywhere, from knowing, just being at the Roundhouse, being able to see where the House of Representatives side is and where the Senate side is. So that was a very good experience for our kids, and hopefully we can continue this, because I think that our students need to see that there's more beyond this, and that there's a process. I think that that's important to know, that changes do not happen from one day to the next, and there's things that need to be followed and need to be done. And definitely I wanted to say that yes, I am very proud of the leadership that presented, and they made us work. So I have some of the homework that they gave us. They did make us. We were sitting there, and So we worked. So I think that not only did we work, but hearing other boards, I think that, they learned something from the district, but then I think we also gained something because we realized that, there's many things that we might think that it's happening just here, and they're obviously happening elsewhere, and what can we do to make those changes? So I think that was a positive thing that also I acquired from going to the NMSBA. Thank you for doing such a great job in representing Gadsden very well, and again, the students represented us extremely well. And yes, thank you, Ms. Murillo, for all the legwork that you did. I mentioned to her, I didn't realize that she was gonna have to do all of that. And I mean, I'm just grateful because it gave them an opportunity that not many students can say they've had it. So that was great, and like I said, hopefully we can continue doing things like this for our students.
I'd like to conclude I have all these quotes written down that those of you who went will recognize them, like culture eats strategy for breakfast. So those of you who went and those who didn't are curious what that means, that's the ones that went. And then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I've been doing that when my snooze button goes on because I got to go. And then I told her and she said, don't do it. So I'm not going to do it, I'm going to behave. But I like to move it, right? So that was, you have to have fun also as teachers, right? When you're sitting down and you got to get up, then you got to move it. Okay, so it was fun. So it was fun and productive, and like we said, let's keep the momentum. So with that, I conclude on what we learned on these two opportunities.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. Our next item is our student representative, and we have Gideon Potts here, who is a senior at Chaparral High School.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gideon, and I'm representing Chaparral High School. I'd like to thank the board for having me here. We have some awesome things going on campus, and I'm very happy to share them with you guys today. Starting off with sports, I have a big one. Our girls wrestling won district for the first time in a while, so that's really exciting. And we also have basketball. Girls JV and varsity won their games on Friday. Also, golf, track, softball, and baseball seasons are starting really soon. And I think tryouts happened already, and the next games will be next week. For clubs and organizations, BPA competed in Las Cruces, and they won first place for broadcast news and first for podcast. They are looking forward to their state competition, and I think just about a week in Albuquerque. TSA competition starts next month, and they have a national competition in Louisville, Kentucky. ProStart won for regionals, and they're competing later this month. And they're gonna go all the way to Orlando, Florida Disney World. National Honor Society had their induction ceremony yesterday. It was a really big success, and they inducted upwards, I think it was around 30 members. NHS partnered with Educators Rising in December, and they asked for toys and pajamas to be donated. It was a massive success and one of the best fundraisers we had in a while, and we exceeded our donation goals. And lastly, the 21st Century programs brought many after-school activities to CHS. We have clubs from DEMA to craft club, self-defense, civic engagement, cosmetology, and a lot more. A couple more activities is, also, I would like to thank the board for the air funds. They have brought a lot of memorable experiences to the campus, and I'll go over a couple of them right now. In December, seniors took a trip to Colorado to explore the colleges they have to offer. They went to the campuses of University of New Mexico and the University of Colorado in Boulder, sorry, that's a hard one for me. And we also visited the capital of Colorado. And then juniors will be taking a college tour trip to Central Texas to visit universities from UT to Texas State. Gardening Club will be taking students to Santa Fe, a couple of them to Santa Fe to visit the state legislator for agriculture later this month. Students are excited to engage and talk to representatives. And then also, seniors will be going to the Aggie Experience later this month, and they're going to explore what NMSU has to offer. One more thing going on in March is the creative writing class is going to go to NMSU to see a play. And then lastly, access testing got started, and we're going to have a pep rally, I believe, next week. Sorry, that'll be all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gideon, we appreciate that. Board member report. Ms. Murillo, will you get us started this evening?
Good evening, everybody. I missed out on the trip to San Antonio with my colleagues, but while they were away, I got busy working with our representatives for the legislative session and getting the kids ready for the trip. And then also I attended Santa Teresa High School pep rally. And my last one was in 2002, so it was very interesting to be back at a high school. I took Aussie from El Paso Locomotives, and it was really neat. So I will be honored if you guys will invite me again, or another school invites me, because it was a lot of fun, and like just being part of that group. I want to thank Naval Instructor Albert Diaz from Santa Teresa High School and Lieutenant Commander Mark Morel from Gadsden High School. They were very helpful trying to get what we needed to get the students up there, and also to the Charitable Foundation. They were the sponsors of the dinner with the students, and there was a total of, I think it was 14 of us. And while we were having this dinner, I think what I liked the most, it was being able to talk to the students, and they were able to share their concerns from their schools, personal lives, and I think that opened the door for future conversations. And I told them, I encourage you guys, and I encourage your fellow students to please call us, because we not only represent the school and the community, but you are part of the community, so we represent you guys as well. I have heard a lot of positive feedback about the leadership presentation, and one of them, it was that they needed more, they want more trainings like this hands-on. And they said, the little battle with the football teams, and, something so small with the Cowboys against the 49ers, and then who else was it? It was someone else. The Patriots. So they're like, just adding that extra little details, it was very helpful. And so I got some calls from Silver City board members, and they were asking, maybe they can train us so we can present next time. So I want to thank you guys, because Gadsden was in the mouth of a lot of people. Also, this has been something that I've been wanting to do since I moved here. So 7 years ago, I was part of the Grand County Prospectors, and we go as a group and present at the legislation every year, and it was a big deal. And so I have been trying to put something together with either Salon Park or Gadsden to be recognized as the Gadsden Day. So it happened. After 7 years I've been here, 7 years. May I? Because we all got this, but I just wanted to read it really quick. So it's a proclamation in recognition of Gadsden Independent School District Day. So that is implemented February 3rd, and it mentions every board as individuals. It is signed by the Speaker of the House, the Chief Clerk, Representative Lara, Representative Gallegos, and Representative Willie Madrid. So I thought it was amazing that we finally made it happen. Now that this happened on the House side, Senator Cervantes said that he will be working on getting it done on the Senate side, and then that way it can be official that there is a proclamation of Gadsden Day on February 3rd. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Murillo. Mr. Khan.
Good evening. First and foremost, can you guys hear me? Okay. First and foremost, I'd like to give a congratulations to all our counselors, Counselors Week, and let you guys know that you guys are a big help in a big ways, especially with our communities and bringing everybody together. Congratulations on your week. It might be a day, but you know what? It's a week, and it's almost 365 days that you guys have to perform out there. Congratulations, and I hope you enjoy your day, especially all our Gadsden counselors in our district. And also, I guess my second one is I want to give big round of applause and thank you to Ms. Villalobos for letting us go on this Manzano trip that we took, Manzano training. It helped me because I know that there's been times where, okay, with this strategic that we're doing, you know, that we're switching to and we've gone to, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult to understand, and I know that some of the parents out there, their main concern had been in regards to the grading. So that I was more focused on the grading aspect on this training and along with everything else that went down there. And hopefully, what we need to do is hopefully try to get the parents involved as to explain them. To explain the training that we're going and what the training that all our teachers and counselors and everybody in Gadsden is doing during this transition, which I think we're still part of the way in transition into the Manzano program. Very interesting program. I think once we get the community involved and on board, I think it's going to be very successful as we keep going on into the future. And that's all I've got for my members' report today.
Thank you, Mr. Cano. Ms. Rodriguez?
So just one other thing that I wanted to say about the Manzano training. So one of the things is that it's not a program, it's a framework, and I think that that's very important, right? And I think that something that I learned is that it not only can be utilized within the education system, but anywhere where there's a group, we can utilize this. So that's great, and something that, just 2 words, simplify and execute. I think that was really, really important to me, because that's what we need to do. You know, many times we do one thing again and again and again, when in reality we could condense it and we're going to get the same impact there. I want to thank everyone that attended the meetings for the conversation about the consolidating for Mezquite. I think that there were 2 meetings and I attended both of them, and there was a good amount of parents and community members. Thank you for doing that, because that's what we need. We need to have that communication and that collaboration and understanding, you know, why we're doing things or what the need is. So I appreciate that. And yes, with the kiddos, I do agree with Ms. Murillo, you know, them being able to express themselves and tell us what they're looking for. I think that's exactly what we want. You know, we want to create advocacy, and we want them to be empowered and knowing that what we do here, you know, us up here really are working for the students, right? We're working for them to have a better future. And of course, how are we going to be able to do that? Well, supporting the staff, and that's everyone, you know, not just the teachers, but everyone that's within this organism, right? This community of Gadsden. So I think that those are things that I'm still very excited. You know, I was waking up in the middle of the night because I kept thinking about the framework and how it works and what to do, and you know, not things that I can do, but I think it's just very, very exciting that we can continue and move, you know, have this momentum going. So I think just don't forget to go to Coffee with the Principals. Sorry, I know I didn't attend, but it's important, you know, to keep informed. So go to Coffee with the Principal, and then of course Coffee with the Superintendent. And again, the morning message is very, very important for staff to be able to express any concerns or you know, get some information of what's happening within the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. Flores?
Okay. I get, you're going to say, yeah, cállense, because we keep with the high reliability school, but I'm going to continue here because I'm going to piggyback on what Ms. Rodriguez was saying, is that we also have awesome, the bilingual team attended, which is under the direction of Ms. Tarazona. So no bilingual teachers, dual language teachers, that we don't forget you ever, because so Marzano had their resources outside, and then they had Avante or something like that. And so one of our bilingual specialists, you know, was making the argument, you know, this needs to also support bilingual learners. So know that, you know, the framework is, you know, we are going to make it work for Gadsden, in other words, okay? And then, let me see. I did want to take the time to name the kiddos that attended. So if their parents are watching, if not, you can watch the recording. But thank you to Captain Mark Morrell from Gadsden High School. And so Christopher Alvarez was holding the left weapon. And then Raul Barraza was holding the New Mexico flag. Jacqueline Navar was holding the U.S. flag. And then the right weapon was Shilton Mendoza. So congratulations to the Gadsden High School Color Guard for attending Santa Fe. And then now Santa Teresa High School, we have Sergeant Alberto Diaz. And so the left weapon was held by Ailey Rodriguez, the U.S. flag by Alina Subia, the New Mexico flag by Madeline Kruzik, and the right weapon by Dante Flores. And then I also wanted to thank Principal Suggs. She also sent a parent chaperone, and she joined us, and her name is Debbie Galavis. So she's a fellow teacher, a fellow math teacher. I had the pleasure of meeting her. So thank you for coming out with our kids. And then on Monday, I actually attended through my work the Dyslexia Southwest 2023 virtual conference. It's the first time that I attend. And so when it started, and it was about an hour long, and then I was pleasantly surprised to see a familiar face that's actually here, back there. Ms. Principal Cheryl Coyle. They recognized Vado Elementary as receiving a grant. I don't recall what the name of the grant is, but it has to do with structural literacy. So it was a very pleasant surprise to see Principal Coyle along with about 3 of her teachers. And so that was an awesome surprise to see that. And then, let me see. Oh, and just FYI, the title of Mr. Wagamas and Marias and Mr. Dempsey's was, I did have it, Best Practices Improving Academic Performance, so outstanding job. And with that, just again, thank you. It's that National School Counseling Week. Thank you, counselors, for all you do. And then maybe at the end of the board meeting when we adjourn, it's National Pizza Day, so go have Pizza Hut, Peter Piper Pizza, have a slice of pizza. And with that, I conclude my report.
Thank you, President Flores.
Okay, moving on to our agenda item 4, Human Resources Report. That is there for public knowledge. No action by the board is required. Okay, moving on to item 5. Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the agenda without modification.
Mrs. Rodriguez made a motion to accept the agenda as is. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item 6, do I hear a motion?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to accept board work session minutes for January 7th, 2023, and be regular school board minutes for January 12th, 2023.
Mr. Cano has made a motion to accept the items as listed, as he stated. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, moving on to item 7, our consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as is.
Mrs. Padilla has made a motion to accept the consent agenda as is. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, moving on to open forum. Ms. Delgado.
Madam President, we do have open forum.
Okay, so we do have one individual this evening, AFT President Dolores Nañez. Please step up to the podium, ma'am. And let me go and read our statement here. Okay, so the board discourages personal attacks upon staff personnel or any other persons in attendance or absent by individuals who address the board. Any person making public comments shall be solely responsible for the content of his or her comments. The board neither adopts nor assumes responsibility for any comments made by individuals during public comment. Presenters are cautioned that statements or representations concerning others that are false and damaging to a person's reputation may subject the presenter to civil actions for defamation. The board prohibits personal threats and the use of obscenity. Such speech is not protected and will not be permitted. The board further prohibits disruptive conduct. Disruptive conduct will not be tolerated. The board also offers formal channels for board consideration of concerns and complaints, including involving individuals. Policies KE, KEB, and KEC, and KED are provided by the board for disposition of such concerns and complaints. And you do have 5 minutes, ma'am. You may begin.
Thank you. President Flores, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, good evening. You know, everything that you've said is great, but then I deal with the negative stuff in the district. So one of the things that just came up again is that there's a rumor that certain job descriptions are concerned about that there are going to be added days to their contract. That's, you know. And then still, other people feel, other groups feel that they're still underpaid compared to Las Cruces, which is, of course, the closest district in New Mexico to us. And so, of course, we're always comparing ourselves to Las Cruces. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I don't know, but we are, okay? So then there's, you know, again, the calendar. The calendar was presented, in our opinion, that it was presented with a particular outcome in mind, because the questions that were posed, like, do you like this? Yes. Do you like that? Well, sometimes. You know, no. Sometimes it's not a yes or a no. I don't think that it's accurate when it comes to certain things. Can it be used for other things? Yes, but not for like something like a calendar. It's either you like it or you don't, not us sometimes, okay? So again, because we all remember the last time the whole calendar was changed, you know, the district, you all added 7 days to the calendar, and a lot of people were upset, a lot of teachers were upset, and again, those people that have options, they got out. They went somewhere else where they didn't have to work extra days. Okay, so, you know, we realize that district has that kind of power, but if you're asking us to participate in a survey, don't make it like, you know, you want a particular outcome. Okay, it's either yes or it's no. And like Mr. Dempsey said, you know, it's still up in the air. Whatever calendar we adopt could be changed, you know, because, you know, even though, you know, our figures are, we're still, you know, I think the high schools are, what, 6 days, 9 days more hours of instruction, it could change. So, you know, keep that in mind. So the other thing is also, one of the things that everybody is happy about, that, you know, again, Mr. Dempsey touched on, was the movement for health care, the insurance. So that's gaining a lot of momentum, and hopefully it'll be that big raise that Mr. Dempsey's talking about. You know, when you look at 4% versus keeping what you pay for your insurance, that is going to be a big win if it goes through. So, you know, we are, on our part, we're supporting that bill. So, and then again, communication. It has been better. It's not great. We're still not there. You know, a lot of administrators and supervisors, they talk fast and loose, and sometimes they say things to employees, whether they mean it or not, they say it, okay? So we gotta, you know, watch the professionalism from all sides. You know, you all say, well, from the bottom up, and we say from the top to the bottom, however you wanna look at it, but it's gotta be the professionalism, because then that creates, you know, bad blood between all of us. And then one of the other things that we've noticed in the district is collaboration does not come or should come with professionalism. We're having a lot of problems at the work sites where, we just don't get along. I don't know what it is, but we don't get along, and we need to get along. And maybe somebody needs to tell us that we need to get along, but we're having to deal with a lot of that because we're collaborating, we're working together, but we are not being professional. Okay?
Your time is up, ma'am.
So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to action items. Our first action item for this evening is item 9A, the 2023-2024 school calendar. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Mr. Wogameth is going to present this item.
Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, I bring back to you for consideration of action for our 23-24 school year calendars. As you recall, the timeline and processes that we used last time, from our pre-planning survey to our parent input to our additional calendar meetings, I presented to you last time the two options, A and B, that we were going to present to the community, and I'm here tonight to share with you the results of the input. Again, for both calendars that were presented to the community, we talked about this last time, the structure of them was similar to last year. That was really based on the parents' greatest request they gave to us was, we would like consistency in the structure of our calendar from year to year. What can support you on the early outs, because we can see some importance in that, but the overall structure, please leave that the same. So that's why A and B have many similarities. Number two, we're going to keep early out Wednesday to support planning and collaboration for teachers and staff. I'm sure Ms. Flores has Sir Marzano's indicator card there, right? Indicator 1.4. Planning and collaboration is a key part of level 1, and so you can see the decisions that you made last year as a board to support that, and why we're going to continue to have that, because we recognize that's an important foundational element. Again, calendars will align to DACC and NMSU. We have aligned our calendars, or portions of our calendar, with other regional calendars in our areas, so families can have some common time off on holidays and vacations. And then, of course, as was mentioned earlier, changes to the approved calendar may be required for future compliance with the New Mexico legislature and PED requirements that come out of this session. Remember, this session doesn't conclude until, I think, March 17th. And then the governor's going to sign and not sign things, and then there's going to be a quick turnaround. So I believe, as an academic services team, we have designed the days on this calendar in a manner that we believe is going to meet those needs. We kind of went forward thinking, how can we build this that we think we won't have to change it? And I'm going to give one of those to say I hope we've done that, but hopefully we'll know soon. Next slide, please. Again, the calendar choices, you can see both of them in front of you. Calendar A, really the major difference on that one was when Christmas break started and ended, when the school year ended, and most importantly, when the professional development days were placed throughout the calendar. Option B that you're looking at is, again, very similar to this year's in the structure of when vacations start and end, as well as when professional development days are. Next slide, please. So the survey was sent out. It was open for 5 days with the support of Mr. Carmona. We sent it out via remind, email, phone, and we also gave parents option to vote paper ballot if they'd like to as well, to make sure they were able to contribute that way. There were almost 1,500 total responses, 839 families. So we went through and looked at the data, and if it was a family, we kind of said, okay, this family, one family, one vote. And then same thing with the staff, about 630 staff. Next slide, please. So these are the results of the approximately 1,500 votes. You can see that option B in the red there had the majority of the votes. So if you flip to the second page of your of your little handout, your two handouts I gave you there. We have option B, which again is basically similar to the one we have this year. Again, responding to the parents, I can see their need for consistency. And I think it'll be even more evident on this next slide, please. This slide breaks down for you by a job or category of how they voted. So the blue is option A, and the red is option B, okay? You can see that, for the certified staff, the classified staff, the student nutrition and administrators, their preference as staff was the first one. Now that could have to do with professional development spread out throughout the year. I think we recognize that. However, when you look at the red, it was kind of close on all the staff ones, but you can see with the red, overwhelmingly with our families, they felt that option B was the one that best fit their needs. And as I sort of reflected on why that would have been, I think it was consistency. We did this year. We'd like to do the same thing next year. So I believe that's why there was such a strong preference for option B with our families. Next slide, please. Can you click on the thing that says option B there? So before I go back and go over the recommendation here, are there any clarifications that you need on the survey results that I presented this evening? Ms. Murillo.
What are I saw the pink.
Madam President, Ms. Board Superintendent, I'll explain the pink here in just a second. It has to do with part of the recommendation that we're going to give. It's a surprise. Surprise coming, Ms. Murillo. You won't have to do any work like at the meeting last week. Other clarifications I can provide, and then I will provide clarification shortly on the pink, the mysterious pink dots.
I think there's any, Mr.
Okay.
So continue.
All right, back to the slideshow, Mr. Snowdy. Okay, so our recommendation based on the survey results is going to be to approve calendar B with the flexibility to adjust early out days, and that's what the pink dot is there for. If you look on the calendar, and I'm sorry, apologies. If you look on the calendar here, February 13th and September 13th and March 14th are early out days, Wednesdays, like we had this year. Now, on these blue days, there's no classes in session because it's parent conference. So some of the feedback we got back from us administrators, when you have a strange week like that, shift the early out to a Thursday, right? So the kids are coming in 3 full days, then a half day, then they're gone on Friday because they don't have class or parent conference. So in the recommendation to approve it with our ability as administrators to adjust those, I want to demonstrate that that's something that we may need to go and adjust. We just want to get some feedback from our campus administrators because they sort of are dealing with that. They're going to kind of deal with it next week with attendance. And so right now, that's the only early out that I would think administratively we'd like. It won't affect the overall number of days and stuff with the PED, but just the placement of those, we just need to learn a little bit before we put it in place. Back to that slideshow, Mr. Stody, and then I'll wrap it up. So again, we've placed our recommendation there to approve calendar B with flexibility for district administration to adjust early out days. Our target to publish and finalize all this after we have those couple of things looked at will be about February 24th. We can get that out. That gives us an opportunity for any final actual edits, making sure the grammar and everything is correct. We need to confirm the start and end of the 9 weeks, any other information that needs to go on here, and double check with UTEP to reconfirm those graduation dates, and that was a request to make sure we try to have that on there. And so we have those on a hold. I do need to confirm with Mr. Nichols that those are still valid. And then right before the end of the month, we should be able to publish this calendar if approved. And that concludes my presentation.
Questions, comments, or concerns for Mr. Wolgemuth? I have a question, comment. So we were, if it's the will of the board here shortly when we vote to approve one of these calendars, we would have to make the motion to provide the district with flexibility to adjust that early out date, and then to later
Madam President, members of the Board, Superintendent Dempsey, just with that statement of the ability to adjust the early out days. That's it.
the ability to adjust.
Yes, yeah, on that, I think I had worded that on there. I should have given you a copy of that presentation. Can you go back one more, Mr. Snowdy? That would, right there, that second bullet, I think, is maybe the best way, the best phrasing of that, to adjust the early out days. And if not, Madam President, you know, we can go with just like it's printed, whatever the will of the board is.
Okay, and then you also, all that is pending then is the confirmation of the graduation dates, correct?
Yes, I've got to just do some edits and make sure it looks good and is ready to, you know, be published out to the world, whichever one is decided on.
Okay. Any further questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, so do I entertain a motion that we approve calendar A or B? Well, first of all. Recommending B, I'm so sorry. Let me take that motion back, I'm sorry. So do I hear a motion to approve calendar, do I entertain a motion to approve calendar B with the flexibility for district administration to adjust early out dates and then also to later on confirm the graduation dates at UTEP?
I'll make a motion to accept calendar B with the option of early out
Okay.
flexibility.
Okay, so Mr. Cano has made a motion that we approve calendar B with the flexibility for district administration to adjust early out dates and then confirmation of the graduations at UTEP. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, sir. Okay, moving on to action item 9B, the City of Anthony Memorandum of Understanding for School Resource Officer. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, I want to review with you our current MOU with the City of Anthony to provide an SRO at Gadsden High School, and I think we're all aware that that started this year. I was notified on January 22nd that the current SOR would be reassigned to what is called patrol duties within the City of Anthony, so removed from our Gadsden High School campus. The chief of police there informed me that this was part due to some staffing shortages. They have several people on approved military leave. The notice did include an encouraging message that when the staff shortages are addressed, the City of Anthony is willing to revisit this topic. So I want to leave that door open for those possibilities. However, I do want the board to be aware that we originally agreed to pay for a large portion of that officer salary. And they will not be on our campuses necessarily. They will be patrolling the community, which to me, it's a little bit like me asking the community to pay for a math teacher. I'm supposed to already be providing that. And so my recommendation is to issue a 60-day notice of termination with the understanding that GISD would be interested in revisiting this agreement when their staffing shortages change.
Questions, comments, or concerns for Superintendent Dempsey? Okay, so do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we issue a 60-day notice of termination with the understanding that GISD will be interested in revisiting this agreement, MOU with the City of Anthony Police Department. Yes?
Board Member Woody has made a motion, as she stated. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, our next action item is 9C, consideration and possible action regarding consolidation of Mesquite Elementary with North Valley Elementary and Vado Elementary. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, we have had this conversation multiple times, now held several meetings. I'll just review the information so that everybody's clear. We are dealing with the declining enrollment at Mesquite, North Valley, and Vado. We need to consider future facility investments in these decisions. Right-sizing our staff to match our student enrollment is critical. The earlier we begin that process, the more gradual we can be. The longer we wait, the less gradual we will be able to be. The recommendation is to begin this with the 23-24 school year. Space available at North Valley, between North Valley and Vado, there's 330 student spaces available. Mesquite currently has 235 students enrolled. And this facility would be utilized, it would be temporarily phased out, but could be utilized temporarily during our middle school construction project, which will help us considerably during a very large project. Mr. Snowdy, if you go to the next slide. I'll quickly review the numbers with you. These are, if you go back 10 years, Mesquite had 404 students in the 2012-13 school year. Today, 235. North Valley, 407. Today, 265. And Vado, 474. And today, 327. Next slide, please. The next slide shows them in a graph, and you just see that gradual decline over time. Next slide, please. This is the cluster, meaning we combined all three of those. 10 years ago, we had 1,285 students between those three schools. Today, 827. Next slide, please. This is just a little bit of a timeline. We had a discussion on this item September 22nd. We had a second discussion December 8th. A third discussion on January 12th. We met with the staff there on the 10th. Community meeting on the 17th, the second community meeting at Vado, which I appreciate Ms. Coyle, who was terrific about offering tours of her campus, and we appreciate that. That was this week, February 6th. And proposed action today. Keep in mind that this could result in some adjustments to attendance zones because we want to make sure we balance these so we don't imbalance a school. And then further keep in mind that down the road, when we complete the remodel of our middle schools, and Gadsden will be the first, all sixth grade classes will become off those campus and go to our STEM academies at the middle school. So you'll size down again significantly. So this is in part the first phase of us sizing down those elementaries, and I believe a very important phase. Next slide, please. Questions, concerns, ideas?
Board members? Go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment that, again, going to those meetings, I think that one of the biggest concerns was the classrooms growing and having more kids in the classrooms. And I think that's something that's very important, and the community needs to know that the staff that currently is at Mesquite would be moving, so that means that there'll be more teachers. So actually the class sizes, from what I'm grasping, is that instead of growing, there's a possibility that they could decrease. So I think that's what I heard at both meetings. I think that was one of the biggest concerns, and so looking at this, I don't think that really should affect. And as parents, we always fear, right? We always wonder how our kids are gonna adapt. But that's, as adults, I think that's the fear, but kids really do adapt pretty quick, and we were part when Vado opened. I was the first cohort, my child, and it was a fear, right? It's like, oh, she has to stay in Mesquite, and ended up at Vado, and sure enough, they do adapt, and so parents know that it'll be something good. And of course, we need this, as we can see with the numbers, that it's decreasing. It's not just because the building is old or, there's things of that nature that are thought, but if there's not enough students, well, it's something that needs to be looked at. So I think that was my only comment.
So I do have a couple of questions and comments. Did you have the opportunity to look at the daycare situation? And so what information did you?
Madam President, board members, President Flores had brought to my attention that we have some students that are picked up at Mesquite by a daycare center that actually is out of Las Cruces. So, and that they would not, I think the information that was given was that they were not willing to transport all the way to Vado. Here's what I found out, and Ms. Word helped me with this, is really it's 3 students that are picked up, and honest to goodness, the daycare struggles right now to pick them up and is on a very consistently actually late. many times. So there's a real struggle right now. I think that struggle is real, and I don't want to disregard it. However, I don't know if we can make this sizable of a decision for 3 students.
And, yeah, I actually, Tiny Station is the daycare, and I did reach out this afternoon, spoke to the director, and she said 5. And yes, she said that, I said, you would not consider, and she goes, we just can't do it. So I'm like, okay. And so all I guess I would ask is, talk to the families, share information that there's probably other daycares, either like business establishments or even home daycares, to help them, maybe through social workers, I'm not sure, but just help the families find a solution or how to adapt to that situation. That would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely, we can do that.
The other thing is, I didn't ask for the other one, but so if it is the will of the board to consolidate Mesquite, is it still going to be called Mesquite or what, elementary, or what are we going to name that facility, because it's no longer a school? I'm just curious, what are we going to call the building?
Madam President, board members, I actually hadn't thought of that. I know San Miguel for a long time was still known as San Miguel Elementary, right? Without a doubt, if this is approved, our next step is to figure out if we can utilize it for our middle school project, if you will, and that's going to be very important. But I would somewhere like to have a conversation with the board about the possibility of shifting it to a youth sports center for the district, and that would be primarily for elementary age students. There's some great area around this school. There's a gym that I think with a little bit of work could be utilized, and it could be, a lot of times our youth programs have to share facilities with our middle schools and high schools, and that's a struggle, quite frankly, sometimes. This could be a facility designated just for them, which I think our community lacks, and it could be a really nice item for our community to utilize.
Okay. And then my only other question, concern is there departmentalization currently occurring at Mesquite Elementary? Meaning, for example, there's a 5th grade team or whatever grade, and, I teach the math, Ms. Rodriguez teaches the LA. Is there departmentalization occurring at Mesquite Elementary?
Madam President, board members, I believe there is departmentalization at the upper elementary, and there may even be looping that occurs. Mr. Araujo, I may need to help bail me out here and give me a little guidance. You're shaking your head no, so I'm probably giving some inaccurate information. If you can correct that, I'd appreciate it.
President Salazar, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey, there is departmentalization in Mesquite, but it's by subject.
Okay. And the reason I bring this as my next question is there departmentalization at North Valley and at Vado?
No, only in I understand it's only in Mesquite.
Okay, and the reason I bring this is because, I guess I'm going to pose this question is, my opinion as an educator is departmentalization has its advantages and disadvantages, but with the dual language program, I'm going to say that it is very disadvantageous, if that's even a word. And so I would just, I'm not telling you what to do, but just consider, please, that if there's strong proponents maybe or advocates for departmentalization at Mesquite, my fear is they're going to try to convince our administrators at North Valley and at Vado to do that, and I don't think that's a good thing for our dual language program.
Madam President, board members, we appreciate the input, and we absolutely will keep that in mind and consult with Dr. Terrazona on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I have no further questions. Any further questions on behalf of you? Okay. So do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to consolidate of Mesquite Elementary with North Valley Elementary and Vado Elementary.
Mr. Cano has made a motion to consolidate Mesquite Elementary with North Valley Elementary and Vado Elementary. Superintendent Dempsey?
So recommend.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, moving on to discussion items. 10A, Discussion regarding possible consolidation of Loma Linda Elementary with Anthony Elementary, Gadsden Elementary, and Berino Elementary. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, this is our third conversation around consolidation. And this one, what I'm going to tell you is that we want to pause for a minute. This one's a little bit more challenging. And what I mean by that is that we're dealing with 4 schools that would consolidate down to 3. And we're also dealing with a complex communities around that make that up. And I'm gonna ask that we pause for a second to bring in an outside vendor to help us do some planning with this. I still think it's the right move because we have declining enrollment at Loma Linda, Anthony Elementary, Gadsden Elementary, and Benito. And in fact, it's a larger decline, and I'll show you that, we've seen this, than any consolidation we've done. We have to consider future investments. We want to right-size this thing again because we want to gradually adjust our staff to match our student enrollment. My recommendation would be to begin this the 24-25 school year. We would take a full year to get that study done, plan it, and then have a discussion about it to make sure it's the right thing. There is more than adequate space between between Anthony Elementary, Gadsden Elementary, and Berino. There's 512 spaces for student. Loma Linda currently has 297 students. This campus, the idea of this campus would be utilize it as a district training center. It's kind of centrally located if you think about its location. And then if by chance we need growth, we have a space ready to go. So we'd really maintain it as an elementary. And we have made a good investment in the HVAC and some remodel in that particular campus. And so it could really easily be utilized as a training center temporarily. And then if we had growth in the area, we could very easily transition back. Next slide. You'll see the numbers here. We've watched these before, but I'll review them with you. Anthony Elementary 10 years ago had 423 students. Today, 324. Berino, 548. Today, 353. Gadsden, 534. Today, 419. And Loma Linda, 481. Today, 297. Next slide, please. This will show them graphed, and you see that gradual decline over 10 years. Next slide, please. This is the cluster slide. And so 10 years ago, you had 1,986 students. Today, 1,393. So you see that. That is the largest decline in clusters that we've talked about to date. So, I still think it's the right move, but I think we need a little bit of time to consider it. Next slide, please. We had a discussion at this in January on the 12th. I've met with the staff at Loma Linda today, had a great conversation with them. They had some amazing questions and had really thought about them. The big conversation piece is what's called the golden ticket. The golden ticket is if you are a staff member at a site in which is approved for consolidation. And you can utilize that golden ticket to pretty much take any lateral job in the district. So if you're a teacher at Loma Linda, and well, let's use Sunland Park. And just a few minutes ago, we have now Mesquite. If you're a teacher at Sunland Park, that school has been approved for consolidation. Now, if they move next year to Desert View, that's fine. But if they tell me, look, Mr. Dempsey, I'm fine with going to Desert View next year, but there's not a job open at La Union, and I've always wanted to work at La Union. And when that first grade position comes open, I want it. Well, when that first grade position comes open, they come to HR, and that's the golden ticket. They don't interview, they complete the paperwork, and they become that first grade teacher. Only if you're at a consolidated school and you only get it once and it's non-transferable. So we kind of had some people trying to maybe negotiate some deals with their golden ticket. And it was actually a lot of fun to meet with the staff. They had some great questions, but what a great attitude they had about it. I'm going to tell you, I really appreciate our administrative staff there that I think has really prepared them and reminded them that we need every single one of them. Everybody has a job. You do not have to be nervous about your position. We understand that we may, through these, have some overstaffing for a couple years, but as retirements happen, it'll all shake out, and I think I was very appreciative of the staff. again, we want to contract to get a formal study, and then we want to give that staff an opportunity to look at that study. That was very important to them, that they got to see it, and I think that's a fair request. And then I would say next spring, we come back as a board and have a conversation with that information and decide if that's still the right move for us, okay? Keep in mind, as those middle schools are completed, sixth graders would come off all of those campuses. So you're going to size down those campuses again when that sixth grade STEM academy is completed. Again, implementation would be proposed for the 24-25 school year. Next slide, please. Questions, concerns, or ideas? This is a discussion item.
Questions, comments, concerns? So I do have a question. I just want to make sure that you clarify to constituents out there and the public is, what would your response be? Why in the community of Anthony are we going to conduct a formal study and not in the other two schools?
Madam President, board members, it really is because the complication of the area. It has a city of Anthony, but it encompasses all that surrounding area. That's a little complicated to figure out where to set those attendance zones. Where the others, it's been really pretty cut and dry where to set them. This one's a little bit more challenging because we want to get a balance of these three schools. And I'm afraid if we try to draw it and then a subdivision pops up in a certain place, we may draw it in the wrong place and then have to change it. My hope is any change we make it once, and then we try to hold to that. So that's really why it's a complicated area with some areas very congested and some areas very rural.
Okay. Who are we planning, and I apologize if I missed it, who are we planning on hiring to conduct the study?
Madam President, I hadn't mentioned any particular vendors, but there's a couple out there, and I'll work with Ms. Cadena, who will help guide me a little bit.
And definitely, whoever gets the opportunity to conduct the study would most definitely be working probably collaboratively with the city of Anthony to get information, data.
Absolutely, we need to understand, and that's another piece of that complication is they have their plans, and we want someone who can study those and understand the impact of them. We just want to be sure we do, if we decide to do this, we do it once and we do it very well so that we don't have to do it again.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, moving on to discussion item 10B, NMS, the New Mexico School Board Association Excellence in Student Achievement Awards. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, each year we have the opportunity to recognize individuals in our community. Each of you should have received from Mr. Guillen the guidelines for the New Mexico School Board Association Excellence in Student Achievement Award. A little confusion sometimes around it. It's not necessarily for a student. It could be, but it typically is for an adult, right? And it's recognizing school leaders, staff, and other individuals who have played an important role in improving student achievement at the local level. March 10th, 2023 is the deadline for local districts to send the name of the award recipients to NMSBA. So that's a day after our next meeting. So we really, and this is kind of, if you'll remember, this is kind of a tight time frame when this happens. In Gadsden, what we've done in the last couple of years is we've allowed individuals to nominate 2 individuals from our support staff, 1 teacher from the district, and 1 administrator from the district. Those get submitted, and then last year's recipients is the committee that determines this coming year's award winners. I would want to possibly have an action item on this February 23rd, if possible. If not, I have that March 9th, which will be a super tight turnaround the next day to get that to them. But that's something that we'd like to get out and want to make sure you're aware of. Any questions regarding this particular recognition?
Any questions? So we're all in agreement to continue the process of how it's been done in the past.
If you have any concerns about that, let us know, but you got to let me know really quick because we got to get those ballots out. And I might mention that I believe it's the NMSBA Achievement Award. You have your picture there on the back wall, and then on the outside, Ms. Delgado has set it up to where your name then appears on the outside as a individual who had received it. It's a very nice recognition.
Thank you. So I think we're all in agreement to continue the way. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, moving on to discussion item 10C, our GISD policy review, section A, Superintendent Dempsey.
Okay, Madam President, board members, we're going to take a stab at trying to begin each meeting to review a little policy, and I don't want you to be intimidated by this. The first section is actually, if you look through it, and if you want to, you can always click on the link and read it word for word. What I try to do here is summarize it, and that's what I'm going to try to do. I'll have to, as the longer sections, I'll have to break them up, but each meeting, I'm going to try to summarize those and give you an opportunity to review them, and if you see problems, and I'll give you an example of one we realized as we do this, then we want to flag that, and we want to do a little study on it, and I think it's a way to help us stay up to date on policy and make sure, first of all, we're using it and we're using it well. There's a couple examples tonight where we want to tighten some things up. So section A is foundation and basic commitments. The very first section in that, component of that, is our mission statement. And you see there, date of adoption. What it says in policy is adoption of manual. However, if we'll all recall, we changed our mission statement. So that's an example of something we need to correct. And so I've flagged that, and we'll work on that, and we'll do a little research to find out during our strategic planning process, we changed our mission statement. And so we want to get that updated. That was an example that I found. The next sections, and I'll try to, like I said, summarize these. It establishes Gadsden ISD as our legal status, and that's just, it's really a proper name, if you will, that gives you a legal status in terms of owning property and those type of items. It emphasizes and talks about the need for community involvement in education and that important partnership. It's a really, really good way to summarize how important we need our community members. It talks about parental involvement and how important that is. It defines very clearly that we are required to be a non-discrimination, equal opportunity organization and non-discrimination on the basis of sex. We have a policy forbidding bullying, intimidation, and hostile or offensive conduct. There is a policy that talks about the commitment to equity, and equity has been a very important conversation for us. And I think, I will tell you, I think as a society we're beginning to understand equity. I think if you look at that policy, it's been there a long time. I don't know that we had a good grasp of equity, but I think we're all beginning to start to understand that, what it needs to look like. Talks about a commitment to religious neutrality, right? And so we want to be really neutral when we come to religion as a public school. Talks about our educational philosophy and our school district mission, and then it ensures that we understand that all campuses are required to be drug and tobacco free in all schools. So that's my summary. If you have questions or have some time, I would encourage you to read that section. It's actually pretty short. Now, I will tell you the next few sections are not necessarily as short, so I'm going to take chunks of that, and each meeting we'll just start trying to review them. And then if you see something that you're interested in or want me to spend more time on, just flag it for me, let me know, and we'll do some more homework on it.
I just wanted to make the comment, sir, just to clarify to my colleagues, is that, I had asked you, and if you can elaborate on, when we go into the district website, under school board policies, we've got what I'm going to call the Gadsden school board policies, but it's it's supposed to be the same thing, and the NMSBA, and we had talked about maybe the possibility, probably you would be consulting with Mr. Snowdy as far as the possibility of probably moving. And I'm talking about the school board policy, the Gadsden.
Yes, ma'am.
Because NMSBA advisory manual should be the one that's up to date. So if you can elaborate on that.
Madam President, I think what you're pointing out is that we have a section on our website that it looks to me like what would be called, and I hope my tech people don't throw things at me because I think this is right, but more of a PDF section. And what happens is at some point that gets printed out and then turned to a PDF or saved, something like that. Well, then when we change it, you have to do that whole process again. And so it's not as up to date as the one that Ms. Flores is referring to on the website. So I'll talk to our tech team to see what's best. I think the best option is to link it to just the NMSBA policy website, and then we know that's the correct one. And we're all pulling policy from the same place.
And I would just request we make sure we keep maybe several copies of the original one, so that we don't lose track.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to discussion item 10D, GISD policy BEDH, public participation at board meetings, and BEDH-E. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, we spent a lot of time on this last Friday during a special session and had our legal counsel give us a little bit of an update. And keep in mind, tonight is a discussion item, so I want to give you some time to process this. This one's, it's a little difficult, right? And we got to think through what it takes to manage this, if you will. I gave you a copy there of our current policy, BEDH, and then there's an exhibit with it. The exhibit is the item that an individual that would want to speak during open forum would complete. And so the language on that is very important, and the language in the policy needs to match our actions. There are 5, and I ran these by legal counsel. We have 5 options regarding public comment. Next slide, please. Option A, and keep in mind, I'll tell you, I can give you my personal views or recommendations, but let's get through all the options. Option A is to eliminate public comment. Now, is that constitutional? Yes. The Open Meetings Act gives the public the right to observe a board meeting. However, there is no requirement to allow public comment. The pro, and we're going to go through pros and cons, the pro of that, it prevents any hurtful or harmful comments. The con of that, public may perceive the board does not value public input, including criticism. This could create barriers for stakeholders with concerns and create obstacles between board members and community members. This would require a policy change, and I'll tell you up front that I would not recommend this option. However, it is an option for you. Option B, next slide, please. Permit use of staff and student names. Is that constitutional? Yes. The pro of that would allow positive recognition or negative of students and staff by name. The con of that, it would allow criticism of students and staff by name. Staff could feel a lack of support from the board. The practical side of this is where managing a meeting comes in. It's pretty easy to manage that, okay, for the most part. The chair can still prohibit threats and stop any disruptive action or conduct. The policy change, this would not require adjustments to the current policy or the exhibit. You can continue to discourage personal attacks, which is constitutional, as long as you do not prohibit personal attacks. That is not constitutional. And so the wording there is very important, discouraging versus prohibit. When you prohibit a use of a name, that falls under First Amendment rights, and that's a pretty serious situation, okay? Option C. Next slide. Prohibit use of staff and student names. Is this constitutional? Yes. Viewpoint neutral, reasonable in light of board meeting purpose. Limitation would have to include an exception for the superintendent. So we all understand that technically I am the only employee of the board, and there would have to be an exception that they could use my name in this if they so choose. The pro of that, it would protect staff and students' privacy. The con of that would have to prohibit positive recognition of staff or student by name. Is it practical? There could be a challenge here. Difficult for board president chair to monitor and stop before it happens. An example, after criticizing or praising a teacher, the speaker quickly states the name. Also, there are too many ways to get around it. Example, speaker describes the teacher by school and position where there is only one teacher at the school who holds that position. Would it require a policy change? It would require adjustments to the current policy and exhibit. You can continue to discourage personal attacks, which is constitutional, as long as you do not prohibit personal attacks, which is not constitutional. Next slide. Option D. Prohibit use of student names except when parent of the student is the speaker. So constitutional, yes. Viewpoint neutral, reasonable in light of board meeting purpose. The pro of that would protect student privacy. Con would have to prohibit positive recognition of a student by name. the practicality of it. Difficult for board president or chair to monitor and stop before it happens. Example, after criticizing or praising a student, the speaker quickly states the name of the student. Policy change. Would require adjustments to the current policy and exhibit. You can continue to discourage personal attacks. Again, that is constitutional as long as you do not prohibit personal attacks, which would not be constitutional. Next slide. Option E, limited public comment to items on the agenda. Constitutional, yes. Viewpoint neutral, reasonable in light of board meeting purpose. The pro of that would allow the public to fully weigh in on any item on the agenda. Practicality, hard to manage, especially if any item on the agenda is broadly stated. Finance report, superintendent's report, HR report. Policy change would require adjustments to the current policy and exhibit. You can continue to discourage personal attacks as long as you do not prohibit personal attacks. Next slide. So the other possibility could be, and you might have some ideas of morphing this, but you could consider the process, if you will. And what I mean by that, there are some boards that instead of a speaker coming to the microphone, they submit a document that's written and it is read by a neutral party. A lot to think about. I'd love to hear any conversation you might have, or if you want to, give me a call at some point. I really need some guidance from each of you because I need to get a feel for where you're at on this, and then we have to make this decision before we can adjust our policy, because I don't know which direction we're going to go, and so I can't draft the policy until I know where we want to go with it.
Questions, comments? Mrs. Murillo?
More of a comment. I think it was really good to have the special board meeting in Santa Fe. It is recorded, so for those of you that would like to see the presentation, it gives us a lot of guidance and where to go from here. I do understand that we want to protect everybody, but then I'm focusing more on the positive side. We want to celebrate our students, we want to celebrate our staff, so I think when something big like that happens and we want to celebrate them by name, that's my struggle right there, but that's my opinion.
So I'd like to make a comment. So yes, most definitely what Mrs. Murillo said is that those of you who weren't able to join us online live in Santa Fe, it is recorded. It is there for you to view. It was excellent information. I was going to ask Mr. Dempsey, would it be possible to post this so that the public can look at the PowerPoint slides that Elena is going to use?
Madam President, board members, absolutely, I can request a digital copy of it, and we can get that posted.
Okay. And I just wanted to share that, when it's talking about personal attacks, I learned it's criticism. So, it comes with the territory. And, threats would be where they're telling you they're going to cause bodily harm to you. So a lot of information, important information, and so I would myself need time to digest this more. And my question is, were any of those choices like what we currently have, or no? No, huh?
Madam President,
Which one was it?
absolutely. Mr. Snowdy, will you go back and let's walk through, start me with B.
And before, I guess, if I may, the reason I'm asking that is because after talking to legal counsel, if you notice this evening, the script that I read was different. Those of you who are normally here, you recognize that. And so, I am of the opinion that I would not like to, I'm totally for public input, and so I'm of the opinion that I would not like to block that. And I agree with Mrs. Murillo that, we need to, hopefully open forum becomes more of an opportunity for praise, because, that's good. But I would also say that, criticism, even when it's, you have to learn not to take it personal, which is so hard, but, also that the public can give what we call growth producing feedback. But I think also something that is very important, sir, is that, and I would request, encourage, educating the public, maybe in a superintendent, coffee with the superintendent, or whatever platform you all desire, is educating them on following chain of command, what that means, that when you have a concern at the school level, you talk to your teacher first. If the concern is happening with the teacher, if it's a coach, you talk to the coach. If it's a principal, straight to the person, because, it's better to have that open communication, and so that person directly knows, okay, whatever the issue is and how they can help you. If that communication occurs and it's not resolved, and you feel as a parent that it's not then moved through the chain of commands, and I'm hoping that maybe by educating our community, that would also help in where we might see a decrease, in I guess the negative part of open forum, if you will. Just something to think about. How were you going to say? Sorry, sir.
Madam President, what I would say is that I'm going to tell you, for the most part, we say this a lot about Gadsden, but we have such kind and respectful families that we're not used to it. Other parts of our state, other parts of our nation, really, especially, and I'm not saying we didn't see some of this, but during the pandemic, things really, at times, I might even suggest, were out of hand. And we're a little sheltered from that. And I think we need to, just recognize that a little bit, be thankful for our community, but also prepare ourselves to manage that in case we need to.
So you were going to, I think, was option B the closest to?
Option B would and the note there that was approved was that this would not require adjustments to the current policy and exhibit. And so this option B is in alignment with what we currently have. That would be constitutional. It would allow the use of staff and student names, but it would not. The board can definitely discourage personal attacks, and then as you mentioned, the disclaimer, we might want to consider adjusting that in our exhibit so that that's read each time.
Okay. And I would, actually, thank you for that information, because I like option B currently. I might change my mind, but I have to digest this information. But I do appreciate Ms. Gallegos helping with this, with the verbiage of the script that's read to our participants in open forum, because I believe it did a beautiful job of, supporting the current policy we have and making those who decide to approach us in open forum responsible for their actions, for what they say, and that they could potentially be sued for defamation of character. And so, I like option B at this time, but, like we said, let's think about it, and then at the next board meeting, we can bring this up for an action item if needed, for discussion, and then possible action item if we choose to do so. Any further questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam President.
Okay, moving on to discussion item 10E, committee assignments policy. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, we just want to talk about our committee assignments, which typically we review each March right after we do our reorganization. And so there's a policy on it. It's included if you want to review it. Currently, we have an athletic committee, a bilingual committee, a finance committee, an audit committee, a technology committee, members of our DACC committee, mental health committee, and then a student health advisory council. The two committees that are required by statute are finance and audit. The rest are local decisions. And I might even want the board to maybe ask if we do really need a separate mental health committee from our student health advisory council. I think those two things are pretty closely tied, and maybe we could combine those unless the board has a different thought on it. And then I don't know if there's some other committees the board would like to consider, if they will.
Okay, so I just wanted to make the comment that in March, we will be reorganizing the board, and then we would take the opportunity to assign committees. And so by then, you know, we will present to all of us a table where it indicates what current committees we are serving in. And so I would say if this evening, if you'd like to go ahead and have a discussion, or we wait till the next time, you know, and what I mean by discussion is if you're if you currently sit in one of these committees, if you'd like to express an interest in continuing or not continuing, you know, that's important information to know. And then also the amount of time, dedication, devotion that some of these committees entail, so that if you choose to step aside from sitting on that committee, others in the board, you know, can decide to pursue that based on, you know, description of what your duties are or what you've done in those committees. There are two other, if you will, I guess, board memberships or committees that you could potentially be part of, and that would be the New Mexico School Board Board of Directors. And so there's two representatives at this time, which is myself and Mr. Castillo. And Mr. Castillo represents our district because it is a large district. And so that's another opportunity. And then, of course, the Doña Ana Community College Advisory Committee. That one meets, I believe, like three times a year. And Dr. Torres and her administrative assistant will always send you, you know, the calendar invites. Those meetings happen at DACC, 6 p.m. usually on Thursdays, but you'll always know in advance. But as far as the NMSBA, sitting on the board of directors, that one will always occur sometimes the day before an institute or a conference starts, or the day that the conference starts. Like this last time when we were in Santa Fe, it was like from 3 to 5, usually 2 hours. And so, you know, something to think about. Am I missing other ones, Mr. Castillo, that are not listed there?
Madam President, as far as I know, I mean, other than the one that we set up last Friday for the evaluation, right?
Yes.
That subcommittee. But other than that, I don't think I see anything missing.
I actually remember one right now is there's also, we could potentially serve on the NMSBA Resolution Committee, and that one will usually be appointed by the Region 7 president, which is Lance Wright from Cloudcroft. And so, or we take a vote at those, at the spring conference, spring regional meetings. So there would be another opportunity for you to serve. But I don't know if we're going to have discussion this evening. If not, we can wait for the next time. But if we choose to discuss this at the next time, be ready to share what is it that you do and, you know, the amount of time that it takes you, so that those who might be interested can consider whether they want to serve in these committees or not. And the only thing that I would ask you, sir, is the Finance Committee. Have they, you said that there's two, remind me the two that you said, the Finance and Audit are the two that are required, correct?
Madam President, Finance and Audit are required, and keep in mind that just the structure, you can never have more than 2 board members on a committee, because then you would have a quorum. So that's very important when it comes to committees of the board.
So so currently, Mr. Castillo and I do sit on the audit, and so I believe Ms. Murillo and Ms. Rodriguez sit on the finance, and so have you all met? And so if not, I would ask why.
Madam President, I don't know if we really have been using that group or that committee effectively, and so give me a chance to sit down with Ms. Martinez, and I think very quickly we can put together that a time, and would ask those 2 members to come in, and we can start working on that.
Okay. Any further questions, comments, concerns? Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 10F, GISD Policy B-1750, BEDBA. Ms. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, this is an example of policy review, and I think probably all of us know this, but we fall into some habits sometimes, and I'm very guilty of that. And so in the spirit of being aligned with policy, which is what many times helps us and provides an order, but also protects us, this is about agenda preparation and dissemination. This week is a good example. Ms. Flores and I typically meet on a Sunday evening at the beginning of the week that the board meeting is, and we approve the agenda. That gives us just a really short window of an opportunity to prep all the material needed for the board meeting, which then also gives each of you very little time to review the information to make a decision. So there's a board policy that covers that. And so in order to comply with it, we'll go through it here a little bit. The purpose is twofold: give board members enough time to have information to make a decision, and also give the leadership team time to prepare. Mr. Snowdy, will you click on current policy? Okay, and that gives you that current policy and what it looks like. So basically, what it is the agenda is required to be posted 72 hours prior to the meeting. Well, you'll see there that in order to request an item on the agenda, you would have to do it 5 it uses the wording central office working days, so let's call it business days, prior to the posting of the agenda, not prior to the day of the meeting. So now we're back the week before. So Ms. Flores and I could meet on a Sunday. It won't be the same week as the board meeting. It'll be the Sunday before. Okay? And so I have some proposed dates. What I'd like to do with Mr. Snow, if you go back to the slide, I have some proposed, maybe I can help everybody get a feel for this. Those proposed deadlines. So what it would look like is each board meeting, so for example, let's say we're looking at the February 23rd board meeting. The agenda that Ms. Delgado and Mr. Reyes helped me with each time, and keep in mind, it's a process that we go through to get these agendas ready. That has to be posted on Monday, February 20th, which means the agenda setting and any item you want needs to be submitted by the 13th. Okay, go down to the next one, March 9th. That agenda has to be posted on Monday, March 6th. So that means the agenda setting and any item you want needs to be given to us by February 27th. Okay? And you see the pattern of that. Now, there's that next one, that March 23rd, that one's a little tricky. The agenda has to be posted by Monday, March 20th. But then you got spring break in the middle of this thing. So I had to back up more days than normal to get that agenda setting done, because keep in mind, to post this, I'm not the one that posts it. So I send the agenda to Ms. Delgado. She does quite a bit of modification and adjustment to make it look really nice, and then it goes to technology, who then posts it on the website. So there's a little process there. I would really like to allow them any breaks they have, and so that shoves those dates back earlier so that we can honor those breaks and let them enjoy them. And so I did that for the rest of the year. What I would propose to do is send you each of you a calendar invite with those dates and an explanation of what that date is. So you would have a calendar invite, for example, March 8th, that says agenda setting, any items must be submitted to President Flores or myself by today at noon. And then that way, Ms. Flores and I will set up our dates when we're going to approve that agenda, and then our leadership team will have adequate time to prep all the material. Questions? It gives you a little bit of a feel. It's quite a bit of a production to put on a board meeting and to do it correctly. And I appreciate everybody's work and effort. I've got a little lax on it, and I think at some level I've tried to make it as convenient as possible, but that really hurts each of you because you're not getting a ton of time with this material, so that's not fair to you. So I'd like to get that back on track. If you have any comments or feedback, please feel free to let me know.
I wanted to thank you, sir, because this is, like HRS says, either approve, improve, remove, or make adjustments. So this is our opportunity to make things more better, if that's the phrase, more better. So I thank you for working, that we're going to work collaboratively to make that, and it's going to help all of us. And I apologize to the leadership team, because sometimes you guys are, last minute type of stuff. And we're, level one, we're going to be working together collaboratively for the success of our organization, so I appreciate that.
I have one more piece, and I apologize, I didn't mention this, but and this is just a suggestion. I don't know about each of you, but this notebook makes a big difference, but I'll have thoughts, and typically, I do a lot of driving, especially this time of year. We just had a long trip to Santa Fe and the way back, and I have, I'm going to call them sometimes random thoughts, but they're sometimes, something I need to expand on. And it's hard sometimes to capture that. So what I'm suggesting maybe one option could be is what I have is a request link there. And it's really a Google form. So Mr. Sony, could you click on that Google form? Let's see if this thing will work for me. Okay. So if you'll see, it actually shows Mr. Snowdy's email address, and it would show anyone that clicked on that form's email address. If you'll scroll a little bit, you could say, look, I would like to, whichever board member is requesting it, then you select the board meeting you want it to be on. Keep scrolling, Mr. Snowdy, and you get to pick those. And then I need you to help me with a topic. So really, now this is real important, because you have to draft an agenda so that somebody has an idea what you're talking about. So I need you to help me a little bit with the information you give me. That's really a word or a couple words or a sentence. Do you want it to be it could be you want to recognize a group of students. That's fine. It could be you have a question about an HR piece that you want to be sure is in there. It could be, it might be rare to be a consent item, but it's still a part of our agenda, and you never know, right? An action item or a discussion item. And then the final part is, one of the things that we really need from you is details of the questions you have. And really, it could be a list of questions. And that will help us to make sure we're digging for the right information and providing it to you versus sometimes guessing, I think this is what they want. But see, once this gets submitted, we have a timestamp and a date. One of us can reach out to you and say, is this what you meant? Is this right? And then we have a running log of that so that we're all, kind of staying on page. You would have access to see that. It's a Google form, and it pops out in a Google sheet and allows you to take a look at it. So if that's something you're interested in, I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm fine with you picking up the phone and calling me. I just worry at times, and I think I'm getting worse and worse, is we have, especially it's spring, a lot of budget stuff in my mind, and so I'm afraid I forget things, and I probably have, and then I don't get it reflected on the agenda, and then you might get frustrated that it's not there, and that's never my goal, and so I want to make sure this is an opportunity for us to really, formalize that a little bit, and then I understand what you're looking for, and we're not kind of guessing sometimes of what you need.
I love it. I love this, and thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question. We would not, I don't want access to see what she's asking or whatever, so that's not to create a rolling quorum. We would only have access to what we've asked.
Madam President, I don't believe I can set it, I
don't want to know what
I
they're
would have
asking.
to ask my tech team. But here's the thing you got to remember. When you seeing something and reading it doesn't create the rolling quorum.
Oh.
Talking about it, and that's what does it. So.
Okay.
And I will tell you, I think that sometimes helps us. I mean, I think it's an opportunity for us to grow, because I think it's likely that Ms. Rodriguez may submit a question that 2 other people said, I thought that too. And I think that helps validate our thinking and helps us grow as a team. And so I encourage it, but be careful, to your point, Ms. Flores, be careful, my caution always, outside a board meeting, I do not recommend you have conversations about it, because that can very easily be a rolling quorum.
Well, thank you for clarifying, because I'm like, yeah, it's scary. So that makes sense. Okay. Thank you for that form. That's awesome. Any further questions, comments, concerns? Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to discussion item 10G, Gadsden High School pool update. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Ms. Cadena is going to help us with this item because she has a little bit of information that can guide us.
Good evening, Board President Flores, board members, Superintendent Dempsey. Just a small, sorry,
This was just
small update to the pool. I have made contact with Lilly Engineering Incorporated out of Las Cruces. They're a structural engineering firm and civil engineering. We've used them in the past. They are working on getting me a proposal for the structural assessment of the swimming pool facility. We've also, since the last Palms and Associates report was done last March, we've asked them to come back and do an assessment again, and they'll be there on the 15th of this month. And that is all the update I have. Any questions?
Questions, comments, concerns?
Madam President, board members, what I would share is that our goal here is to arm you with all information, and I have to emphasize this. In order to make a good decision on this, if I'm in your shoes, I can't just go to a general contractor. I can't just, we need licensed professionals to give us quality information to make a decision, because there's a liability here that the community will not absorb if somebody gets hurt. It will be us, and it will be on our shoulders. So this would give you those credentials that would be able to say, here's what we recommend and what that might look like. And then we can start talking about a time frame and what investment that might look like, okay?
I do have a question. Obviously there's concerns and there's reports that tells us, that we can't use the swimming pool. So my question is, why, if we can't use the swimming pool, and I appreciate the time that you, Ms. Cadena, and Mr. Smith gave us the tour, that wall that's protruding, and whatnot. So, and then there's other issues in the showers. Why are we able to use it as a field house for visiting football teams if it's not safe to be even used? Can you help me understand why we're having?
The explanation is we probably shouldn't. We used it this last fall. There is no place to put a visiting team right now, and that's why it's important we either decide what to do with it or find another place for the visiting football teams to dress out. There's problems with the pool itself and the facility, so there's two different items. That's the
Madam President, board members,
explanation.
and Ms. Cadena, correct me if I'm wrong here, and I'm going to press back a little bit and say there are spaces for other teams to dress out. It's just nobody wants to let them dress out in another locker room. And so there are several other locker rooms. And we just have gotten in a habit of this locker room is assigned to the volleyball team, and this locker room is assigned to, when you go to many schools, it's very common that the visiting football team dresses out in the girls' locker room. That's a very common practice. And there's no reason why we can't do that same thing in Gadsden. And I think to Ms. Cadena's point, I think if we're, being, honoring what we're being told, nobody should be in that structure until we have these reports.
So is that a decision that you'll be making, sir, that you need to make? Because
Madam
the
President,
concerns
tonight we've made that decision. No one is allowed in that facility until this report is complete.
Okay. And then you will take care of whoever needs to, I guess, convince them or give them a directive regarding?
Madam President, it will definitely not be convincing. It will definitely be a directive.
Okay, awesome. Okay. Any further questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, moving on to item 10H, our Gadsden Administrative Complex re-roof project. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, Board Member, Ms. Vela is going to help us with this item.
Good evening, Madam President, Board Member, and Superintendent Dempsey. It's my pleasure to bring to you this time the GAG re-roof project for discussion. This project will consist on the replacement of the existing TPO roof. We had a pre-proposal meeting on February the 6th. The submission of proposals are on February the 16th at 2 p.m. And then the selected committee will evaluate other proposals after we receive the proposals on the February the 16th. And if it decided by the committee that interviews are needed, we're gonna schedule the interviews for February the 20th, and then I'm gonna come back to the board for action on February the 23rd and award by February the 24th. Do you have any questions?
Questions? Okay, I don't believe so. Thank you so much. Have a
you.
good evening. Okay, moving on to discussion item 10J.
H.
I, ¿qué dije?
Oh, I'm sorry, I.
Aye.
It's aye.
So that is the high school old gym, HVAC, and weight room re-roof. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, Board Members, Ms. Vela will present this item.
Madam President, Board Member, and Superintendent Dempsey, we have the Santa Teresa High School, the old gym mechanical upgrades and weight room re-roof project for discussion. This project will consist on the replacement of the current HVAC on the gym, and we're going to replace the current TPO as well on the weight room. And we had a pre-proposal meeting on January the 25th. The proposals were due today, February the 9th, and we're gonna have our selected committee to evaluate the proposals that we received, and depending on the evaluations, we're gonna schedule interviews on February the 14th. And I'm gonna come back to the board for action on the February the 23rd and award on the February 24th. Do you have any questions?
Questions, comments, concerns? Okay, I don't believe so. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to discussion item 10J, our next regular meeting. And
Madam President, Board Members, I'll try to include this on the agenda a little differently, but we just want to do a little reminder of our next regular board meeting, which is February 23rd at 5 p.m. That particular one will be our final board meeting at Sunland Park Elementary.
And I just wanted to comment that that I had requested, and yes, we'll make adjustments, so that way we all know, the audience that's joining us online, and you all know, and we're reminded when our next school board meeting is. Thank you. Moving on to discussion item 10K, upcoming training opportunities. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, so just some notes here, the upcoming training that is available for the board and some of our administrative staff. We have New Mexico ASBO Winter Conference that begins next week, February 16th and 17th in Albuquerque. We have the National School Boards Association Conference in April 1st through the 3rd in Orlando, Florida. I believe we're pretty much set up for that, and those arrangements have been made. We also have the New Mexico ASBO Spring Budget. That's April 11th through the 13th. This is a really critical budget. Typically, the unit value is announced, so everybody's kind of on pins and needles till that gets announced. This is a long legislative session, so I've actually seen it where it's not once or twice, so maybe we'll get some updates there. Important note, and this was mentioned earlier, the New Mexico School Boards Association Region 7 meeting is on April 18th, 2023, and is hosted in Las Cruces. I think there might have been a little confusion on who was hosting that, but it is, I looked at the website and confirmed it is hosted in Las Cruces. And then finally, the other one I'm aware of is the New Mexico School Boards Association Law Conference, June 1st through the 3rd in Albuquerque.
And again, I had requested Mr. Dempsey to provide this information just for transparency and so that community out there and our constituents know the professional development opportunities that we can attend as school board members. And I want to thank Mr. Dempsey because you're giving us the opportunity to attend the I don't know what it stands for.
ASBO,
You just
New
said
Mexico ASBO.
We requested that, and unfortunately, I know some of us have said no, but I appreciate that it's there. And so maybe I'll think about it, but because we've traveled so much and, work. But thank you for that opportunity, because it's a way of educating ourselves with regards to finance, which is one of our major duties as board members. Thank you, sir. Moving on to discussion item 10L, our annual audit report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, I'm going to have Ms. Martinez help us, and then we're going to give a shot here to an online presentation from our auditor, Mr. Cordova.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make, Ludim, are you going to introduce, or am I ready to present?
I can go ahead and introduce Mr. Robert Cordova. He's our CPA, and so he has a presentation ready. So I'll let him begin. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ludim. I can't hear based on how Mr. Cardona had set me up. So I have, Mr. Cardona, if you could text message me based on that, if someone has a question or I need to stop and put my audio on. Okay? So we prepared this condensed presentation. I just want to start off by saying thank you. Thank you to you, Madam President, Board of Education, Superintendent Dempsey, Ludim, and all of your team. A lot of hard work went into the fiscal year 2022 audit. This condensed presentation is essentially everything that we've discussed already in detail. There's a requirement in the state of New Mexico that all audits get discussed formally in a public meeting, and so we're satisfying that requirement this evening. Go ahead and go to the next slide. I think, yeah, okay. So I'm going to try and keep it, I know I'm on item K here, and so the financial statements of Gadsden Independent School District are 168 pages cover to cover, so we'd be here through double Z if I was going to cover the entire document. So I'm going to try and keep it concise here, about 10 minutes if I can. I'm going to cover just real quickly the timeline over the course of the 6 months where we conducted the audit from beginning to end, touch on some financial highlights, communication with those charged with governance, which is the Board of Education, which we've already fulfilled. Just have a summary slide and then go over our opinions and reporting. So next slide here. So here's the timeline. Sorry, one back. Here's the timeline. So the process starts in right around when budget season is ending in May, June. We communicate all the information we're going to need throughout the process. We also begin with the end in mind. So November 15th is the regulatory due date for all school district audits to be submitted into Santa Fe. So throughout the summer, we informally meet with management, go over this process, begin our risk assessment phase, read minutes of the governing body, do some preliminary inquiries. We were on site and we did our entrance conference on July 21st. So during that meeting, we talked about the scope of our audit, the timing, the nature of our tests. And over the course of the next couple months, we performed the planning and compliance field work, both federal and state. Compliance, we also obtained the final closed out set of numbers. So once you close the books, that's when we dive into the substantive phase of our audit. And so that pretty much all takes us all the way through October. Then we begin the report drafting phase, so the financial statements are drafted. And then I think in early November or late October was a draft of the financials. You guys reviewed those. And ultimately on November 8th, there was an exit conference. So we discussed the details there. I think members of the audit committee were present, and Superintendent Dempsey, Ludim, and members of your team, and we discussed in detail the results of everything you're going to hear tonight. Technically, the release, when the audit was a public document, was on January 10th, and the document is housed at www.osanm.org. So that's the digital version. Again, 168 pages. It's a lot of information in there. And because we performed a single audit, there was a federal component to maintain compliance with the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, and so that was formally accepted by their agency, Office of Management and Budget, on January 30th. So in summation here, for state and federal purposes, Gadsden Independent School District was compliant. Okay, go ahead to the next slide. Some financial highlights. Now, we talked in detail at the exit conference about some of this information, so I'm just going to touch on a few things. Page 11 through 18, within that 168-page financial statement is a section called Management Discussion and Analysis. And that's where Superintendent Dempsey, Ms. Martinez, and her team come up with an executive summary. So I'd encourage you to visit that, because a lot of the information, if you're not an accountant or familiar with school budgeting, it's a little bit tough to understand. So there is a summation. Talks about some of these differences. So you can see revenue here was increased about $33.5 million comparing to FY21. Majority of that was because of the CARES and the federal and state grants, about $28 million increase, and then a little over $3 million increase of SEG in fiscal year 22 versus 21. I also touched on the expenses here. Now, these figures here are on a full accrual basis. We feel it's important for Superintendent Dempsey, members of the board, Madam President, to, if you're talking to LFC and these are the numbers that are in your financials, they're a little bit different than the budgetary basis. So during our discussion, we talked about the effect of the net pension liability and how this kind of has changed or skewed your expenses. So again, we talked about that. In reality, on a budgetary basis, you spent about $225 million. So a $25 million increase compared to fiscal year 21. Now the expenses looks like it decreased, but again, it has to do with the effect of the participation in the retirement plans and the post-employment retirement plan, retiree health care. Net position overall increased. So strong position. Next slide. You can see with the effect of revenue versus expenses, cash, if you took a picture right at June 30th, is up about $22.6 million versus at 6/30/2021. So strong cash position, operational fund balance, very strong. Now, Ludim has prepared a committed and restricted portion for that fund balance. And this last slide here, or this last chart, look back, has to do with just showing that, a lot of that money, the increase in the budget, did go directly into the classroom. So a 10.6% increase from fiscal year 21 in the instruction function. Okay? So that's, again, there was more detail discussed, but that kind of summarizes what we discussed. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So this summarizes several slides in detail. We talked about our audit was conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and generally accepted government auditing standards. And the notion behind that is it's reasonable assurance. We don't test every transaction, every payroll. It's done on a test basis. And we conclude based on the results of our sampling and our test work. The scope and timing wasn't changed at all from the beginning. We did perform a single audit. I'll touch that on here a little bit. And again, timing, I mentioned everything was in on time. The school district is compliant. Accounting policies conform to generally accepted accounting principles. So if you compared your district versus Las Cruces, Albuquerque, any school district in Texas, or the United States of America, there's a uniform set of accounting principles, and so yours do conform to GAAP. There are estimates. We talked about those. There are estimates built into your financials for certain balances. No difficulties or disagreements to report to the Board of Education. No material misstatements detected. There are adjustments, again, so from your budgetary basis of accounting to go to modified accrual and full accrual, and Ludim and her team review those adjustments throughout the audit. to ultimately come up with the ending document that you see. And then no significant exposures noted throughout our audit. Okay. Next slide. On pages 7 through 9 of the 168 pages on our letterhead expresses our opinion. And the opinion that we rendered on the FY22 financials was an unmodified or clean opinion. So that means that the financial statements are free of material misstatement. Okay, next slide. Pages 158 through 160. This is our opinion on our letterhead with regards to the administration of 3 major programs. So we audited the special education cluster, supportive, effective instruction. I think that's Title II. And then the Education Stabilization Fund programs, that's all the CARES stuff. And so ultimately you spent almost $48 million of federal dollars, and we audited 56% and rendered an opinion on those 3 programs. And the opinion that we rendered was an unmodified or clean opinion. So what that means is that you complied with all the rules that are material to those 3 programs. Okay. During the audit, as we become aware of any issues or matters, not everything rises to the level of a finding. So I'll touch on a few things, that we discussed, that are not in the report. What made it to the report, in our professional judgment, were 3 matters. We talked about these in detail, but we felt that they were the least level of severity. So it sounds like you already have a corrective action plan. Now, one was repeated, has to do with inventory. So again, we talked about these in detail. For the single audit, those 3 programs, we had no single audit findings. And then of the prior year findings, 1 was repeated and 2 were resolved. I mentioned, go ahead and go to the next slide. I mentioned, the audit is designed to render an opinion about the reliability of the information in there, and then report any findings. But there's always opportunities just to talk when we're conducting the audit. How do we make things more efficient? How do we reduce risk? How do we make things better to maximize the dollars for the children, in the classroom and the teachers? So we do that throughout the year with Rudim and her team. And so here's a few things we've talked about: investing in cybersecurity, continuing to have penetration testing done, and figuring out the vulnerabilities, where are they, and then responding to that. Continually changing, the risk of ransomware in our state and the country it's continually increasing. We talked some about that. Receivables and requests for reimbursements. So, we understand at PED level, there's a lot of turnover. And, so what we do is we kind of sit down with Erica, and I think we actually found a few areas here where, there should be some reconciliations, both in the office there in finance, and then also communication with PED to just make sure that, all the expenditures within those grant funds, a lot of them are old. This is 2, 3, 4, 10 years ago, kind of closing those out or trying to get the reimbursements. And so some investigation and more tools to do that. So we talked a lot about that. And then GASD 87, that has to do with the accounting for leases. That was a significant change, and there are big numbers in your financials related to those leases. And so your team is continuing to work on the internal controls to make sure you comply with that accounting standard. Okay, Guillermo's texting me here. So that's pretty much what I have for you. Try to go kind of quick and cover everything. A lot of hard work went into the process, and so just to recap, for federal and state purposes, the audit was in on time, unmodified or clean opinion on the financials, as well as those 3 programs. A few areas that we found that working on, and you execute a lot of transactions, large budget. And then we emphasize always it's a year-round process. It's not just during the audit. So as challenges and issues come up, there's an open line of communication to ensure, we're there as a resource. We have to be independent, but we're always willing to share our thoughts to try and help. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Questions, comments, or concerns for Mr. Bobby Cordova? I don't think we have any, sir. Thank you for your presentation. It's always a pleasure to work with you. Actually, Superintendent.
Madam President, board members, I don't have a question. I just really want to commend Ms. Martinez and her team, Priscilla, Erica, and Yolanda, who, what you might not have realized what you just experienced is the Super Bowl of finance. And while it may not have the same rippling effects, that really says a lot about the daily work and effort and the detail it takes. And I believe now, Ms. Martinez, you, and I don't want to jinx you here, but you have never not had an unmodified, which is the highest rating any school district can receive. And that is an incredible reflection of a team's hard work, and I appreciate everything they do for us.
And I was gonna, you stole my idea, but I'm gonna thank you anyways again. So thank you, Ludi Martinez, thank you, Erica Villarreal, thank you, Yolanda Rivera, and thank you, Priscilla Escobar, for all your work. And I know there's more to your team that are not present this evening, but make sure to thank them, and I really appreciate all you do. Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay. Thank you. Moving on to...
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening. Moving on to discussion item 10M, our quarterly budget report for the month ending December 31st, 2022. Superintendent Dempsey.
Madam President, board members, Ms. Martinez will present this item.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dempsey. I bring to you for discussion the quarterly budget report for December 31st, 2022. Operational fund revenues as of December 31st was $72.4 million. Operational fund revenues were $72.4 million. Operational fund expenditures were $61.6 million, or approximately 32.11% of budgeted expenditures. The December 31st, 2022 operational fund balance totaled $68.8 million. As of December 31st, the PED and other grant agencies owed the district $11.5 million for grant fund expenditures and $3.4 million for student nutrition. Total revenues for all funds were $123 million, and total expenditures were $103.4 million. Direct instruction expenditures plus encumbrances as of December 31st were $86.4 million, or 64.48% of the total operational fund expenditures. Pledge, all bank accounts were in compliance with pledge collateral requirements, and our internal review, you can see on the second page, you'll see the results for our internal review. So that was actually pretty good. They're all at 0% for that quarter. Any questions, comments? I think the only other thing is if you scroll down to the next page that I'd like to point out, on Exhibit A is our standing reimbursements. Once again, is about $15 million for the quarter. Questions?
Questions, comments, concerns? Mrs. Medina.
I just have a comment. I want to thank you so much for helping me out trying to read numbers with that class that I'm taking. Nothing against the district, nothing that I'm trying to look is, I'm taking a class of finance and budgeting, working on my master's, and so I started calling certain people and they were like, what are you looking for? And I'm like, it's for an assignment, so I want to thank Ludim for helping me out on that, and it helps too, right, sitting on the board and learning about budgeting and finance at a different level, so thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
My question was, did we recently did you get any carryover monies recently from PED or anything like that?
No, I haven't seen any carryover.
Okay. With that, anybody else? Okay, thank you, Mel.
Thank you.
Okay, and then finally, do I hear a motion to enter into closed session?
Madam President, I make a motion to enter closed session Personal situation pursuant, I do that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. To 10-15-1, H-2, NMSA 1917 as amended for superintendent and associate superintendent report and recent personnel actions and issues, including employee on administrative leave with pay, employees' grievances, and employee issues.
Okay, Mr. Cano has made a motion that we enter into closed session. Superintendent Dempsey.
So recommend.
Ms. Delgado, can you please take roll call?
Mr. Cano?
Aye.
Mr. Castillo?
Aye.
Ms. Flores?
Aye.
Ms. Murillo?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously. We are in closed session. Folks, have a good evening.